Thanks, Saxon. Appreciate it. And thanks to everyone for joining us this afternoon all across the nation. We're really thrilled to bring you this webinar today talking about family and school community engagement, which really kind of piggybacks on a great event that's coming up here at the beginning of October. Family PE Week is about to kick off, and whether you're celebrating it October 2nd to the 6th is fantastic. For other folks, they celebrate it at different points during the year, but it's a wonderful opportunity for you to engage families, bring them in and show them the importance of physical education. But there's a lot of different ways that we can do that. And so our Open National Training team, myself and Nick Klein as Open National Trainers, decided to highlight this webinar and bring in some folks who have some expertise of their own, right? And so we want to make sure we share their great ideas. So I'm Brian DeVore, Open National Trainer, and also the Professional Development and Outreach Manager. And pleased to hand things over to Nick Klein, also an Open National Trainer, but also the Active Schools Manager. Nick?
Thank you, Brian. So I get to wear both hats. This is a co-sponsored event with Open and Active Schools. We appreciate your time and energy. As Saxon mentioned, we know everyone is super busy. So the fact that you're here, or whether you're watching this recorded after the fact, we appreciate your interest in this topic, and we're excited to share some suggestions, tips, and whatnot to hopefully support your efforts. So without further ado, I would like to call our first guest into the panel here. Lisa Paulson is a doctorate student at the University of Northern Colorado. She wears some other hats, which I'm sure we'll get into, but definitely an advocate for the profession of physical education and somebody who has lots of experience. So Lisa, to start it off, let's sort of lay the foundation with the why. Why is it important to engage with families?
Yeah, thanks for having me here. As I guess a student, but a teacher and a parent, while there's several elements of, having an active school culture, I would argue that maybe this piece might be one of the most important pieces of this work, because what we teach them in the building, we know that students spend most of their waking hours in schools. What they do after they leave our doors is really the foundation of if our work is sustainable. And I'll just share really quick that I'm going to get in really deep trouble if anyone from my daughter's school is watching this webinar, but I highly doubt it. And that's the point. Unfortunately, I'll deal with that later. And maybe other phys ed parents and teachers can identify with this. There are no requirements. There's no teacher licensure policy. Just Joe Schmo comes in and teaches, right? So anyway, long story short, and maybe other folks can identify with this, my kid's not getting quality physical education. It's taken me a long time to calm down about that, but she's going to be okay. And I know because she has me. And so that's where it really comes in, is the families, right? All of you you're not real impressed with the physical education experience maybe that your kids are getting, they're going to be okay because they have you, they have family engagement. And so it's so important. And when we talk about a culture, an active school culture, we can't have that culture when we stop at our building, right? It's the families and the communities.
You make a great point there, Lisa. It can be frustrating as a physical education teacher when you see things going on in your child's school that maybe you agree with, or especially don't agree with. And some of the best practices that you don't see, or the engagement with the families, or the opportunities that your own students are getting. And you have a tremendous background as far as being a teacher in the classroom, as well as pursuing your PhD. So as a doctoral student, have you come across any evidence to support the importance of engaging families and entire communities in physical education?
Yeah, lots of evidence. In fact, so our University of Northern Colorado Active Schools Institute team, incredibly lucky to work with them, and we have a strategic partnership with Active Schools. So go ahead and head over to Active Schools website, because there's several really great resources that tie in evidence-based practices in doing this work. So there's, foundational documents, like a guiding framework that's a little more researchy. There's a school implementation guide, which really lays it out step by step using evidence-based practices what to do when starting to implement some of these components. Not all of them at once, but one thing at a time, which you might start with using the SysBAP-Q, it's called on the Active Schools website, as a needs assessment to determine where should I start, and not to be overwhelmed to do all the things. We can't implement, before, during, after school, family and community engagement all at once. We need to recognize and give ourselves grace to do this a little bit at a time. There's a menu of evidence-based practices, which is a really step-by-step as well, just like what am I doing and what am I not doing, and to help inform my future directions. There's a PEAT integration guide and how to implement some of this into undergraduate programs. So much out there. So go ahead and check out the Active Schools website to find more resources on that.
Thank you, Lisa, for sharing that advice. We talked so far about some of the hats that you wear as a student, as a parent, as a teacher, and everything else. But you wear one other hat, and that is as the Shape America Physical Activity Council chair or co-chair. And thank you for doing that. Thank you for being involved with our national association. Does Shape America have anything that teachers can use to engage with families?
Yeah, so while I want to point you, and as you should go look at the position statements, our councils are heavily involved in revising guidance documents and position statements. And those are for you if you're listening. They're not just for administrators or people in policy. They are for you to advocate and back up your work. But what as a teacher, my primary resource, even though there's several resources on Shape America's website, like Health Moves Minds Family Nights, where they have station cards, other ways to engage the families. But my favorite way, and something that our council helps with, is developing the physical activity mind and body calendars. And so I don't know about other folks, but I might go the old hard copy, print that thing out and post it on the fridge. And because much of the content that is in those calendars is designed to pull families in and do it together. Some of them might be individualized and then families can do it too. But much of that content is meant and designed to be, part of like doing things as a family or with friends in the neighborhood and community. So that's probably my number one Shape America resource for integrating family involvement.
And with those resources and with that calendar, it's not necessarily a thing that you have to do everything on every day to commit yourself to. There's families are busy, kids are playing sports, doing other activities, and parents are busy, and other caretakers are busy. So but it is an opportunity where, hey, you have a lazy Sunday and you're just sitting around, and it's like, hey, okay, it's pretty outside. Let's take a look at the calendar and see what we can do. And maybe we do the activity for Sunday, or maybe we do a few activities all together on that Sunday in order to be active as a family. So those are wonderful resources. And like you said, I mean, to be able to print them and send them home is one thing, but then teachers can also make them available on their personal website, their blog, throw them into their learning management system that they have for their school district, so that parents and families do have access to them. So definitely a tremendous resource. Lisa, anything else you want to add about engaging families and communities before we head to our next guest?
I think you've got enough resources, and you're going to hear so many more ideas and ways to do this throughout the webinar. But I think maybe my just advice would be to continue to learn, engage in professional development. Shape America, Active Schools National Summit. If you weren't able to make it this past year, maybe we'll catch you next time. Reach out to us, the people on this call, and everybody. We all want to help because we're all in this together. So that's it.
Thanks, Lisa. Appreciate you sharing some resources and the why behind why it's so important. Have a fantastic day and appreciate all your help.
Thank you.
All right. So now we know our why and why it's important for us to engage families and the entire school community in physical education. So let's take it to the next level, and we're going to bring in our next guest, Mr. Eric Stern. So Eric is the curriculum administrator for physical education, health education, and driver's education with the School District of Palm Beach County in Florida. And I've had the opportunity to work with Eric on several different projects, and appreciate his service not only with Shape State Florida, but also with Shape America Southern District and working towards many national initiatives that are going on. So, Eric, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do on a day-to-day basis before we jump into our first question.
Thank you, Brian. Nick. So this is my 30th year in education, almost 12 in New York City as a teacher, assistant principal, and I've been down in the school district of Palm Beach County for almost 18 years, pretty much as the administrator of health, physical education, driver education, graduation, wellness, and a bunch of other responsibilities.
You you do wear many hats. I know in our communications that you've shared a lot of different things that you get the opportunity to do. So appreciate all you do for teachers and for students. So you're in a school district which is pretty large, and having to work with a large group of physical education teachers as well as other content areas is difficult. I know I did the same thing in Fulton County. So how do you prepare your physical education teachers to be ready at the start of the year as it relates to engaging families?
Thank you, Brian. So the planning actually never ends. It's a 12-month position. It's a 12-month job. And we always want to make sure our teachers are ready to have the best tools and resources for their students, families, school community, and their faculty within the school as well. So it begins right when the last day of school. One thing that I do is I meet with all of our community-based partners, all the supported organizations in Palm Beach County that support health and wellness for students. I mean, there are our teams. So what I mean by that, I have 400 physical education teachers here in Palm Beach County, and the parental engagement support we have in the community and our community partnerships drive the importance of physical education in our county. Our PE teachers do an amazing work, but to be honest, the community speaks much highly about physical education and activity because our teachers don't tell the story as good as they can. So it's the support. So we prepare all summer to get teachers ready for our back to school event. We do an elementary back to school. We have a secondary back to school for our physical education teachers. Our community partners line up our space. They have tables. We do not charge. They have free resources. They give away prizes. They are actively engaged in all of our activities for the day, but we set the stage. We talk about what we need to: curriculum instruction, course description, standards, benchmarks, lesson plans, appropriate practices, risk management, employee wellness, legal services, how to write an accident report. We cover the basics, but then we have fun too, and we engage them with a lot of activity. We're very fortunate. We have two open national trainers in Palm Beach County with Eileen Torado and Christy Kirk at the high school level. So, and then we have a day of learning. But our partners partake in our full day of elementary and secondary. So they're not like excluded. They belong with us. Every teacher must stop by their tables and pick up or sign their sheet, get some free resources. And they do that. And then we welcome them in schools throughout the year so the learning continues. One thing I want to say about family engagement is I just came off the state board PTA. I've served 10 years on the state board, actively engaging parents on the importance of health and wellness for students. Been to Tallahassee over 500 days with parents throughout our state. The parents are the ones that got recess bill passed several years ago in the state of Florida. I also work with our local PTA in Palm Beach County. It's very important to meet those PTA county council presidents, meet the PTA presidents, learn about their boards. Every PTA has a health and wellness expert as a parent on their board. We give them the tools and resources to be actively engaged so they can submit that and share that with their families. Oh, I think you're on mute.
Yep, that PTA component definitely is something that's super critical to engage in and take a look at. And Nick and I will talk a little bit more at the local school level, and we'll talk about engaging the local PTA. But like you say, parents can be your best advocates. And similarly in Georgia, a recess bill passed there, and it was pushed through by the parents. The parents were the ones who made it all happen. So, Nick, you have a next question for Eric?
Yeah, and I just want to say to reiterate a point that made Eric, and that is that a teacher is not just this job that ends in May or June, whenever, depending on the state that you're living in. It is something that we have to think about and consider and plan for, get on board for throughout. And then the second piece was engaging with communities and teachers together so that teachers can learn and they can work sort of as one and unite. So this is what you do to start off the school year. How do you maintain the momentum so that it doesn't fizzle out?
Yeah, so right after we have our training, I send out a significant amount of communication to our elementary, middle school, and high school principals, and we do it based on some things. We have extreme heat here in South Florida, so we have heat index rules that the schools need to be responsible for, but when you can keep kids outside and inside, engage them in appropriate activity. So constant communication with that. We put a lot of pedestrian and bicycle resources out there, especially for elementary schools. We participated in International Walk Your Child to School Day on October 4th this year. It's Wednesday, October 4th. We have the second largest organized walk in the United States with our schools. Over 55,000 kids participate. Our superintendent comes out every year. Parents, elected officials, community members, grandparents, pets, everybody's invited to participate in a Walk Your Child to School Day. We use our community partners, Safe Kids of Palm Beach County, the Department of Transportation. We use the Transportation Authority, the trauma centers, all the hospitals, fire rescue, the sheriff's department. Everybody is on board with that day in October. So a lot of communication goes out from the school district through our principals on their call outs, their web links, their newsletters, and we share that all year. And I shared a bunch of videos with Nick. So if anybody needs some videos on how we do the walk, or you could just YouTube Palm Beach County Walk Your Child School Day, and you can see many, many videos on this over the years.
Outstanding. Thanks, Eric. Yeah, I mean, and that's part of the key. Everybody gets all fired up at the beginning of the school year, and then sometimes you get that letdown come, September, October, where everybody kind of gets back into their regular routines, and a lot of things start to fall by the wayside. So being able to sustain that throughout the year, having different events that are super important to the community and super important to engagement are critical. So tell us, is that you talked about Safe Routes to School? Is that the only type of family partnership, with your teachers for the year, or do you, continue on through the months of, October, November, all the way through May and June?
We do. We're very lucky that our school district allows for 6 professional days, full professional days throughout the year. So I have 3 professional development trainings, full day trainings for elementary physical education teachers, and 3 professional development trainings for middle school and high school professional development trainings. Obviously, CPR, we work with American Heart Association, we work with community partners. We teach hands-only CPR, AED usage, first aid in all of our middle schools and high schools through physical education. So that continues throughout the year. But also we do a community run as well. So we have the 5th largest fair in the United States here in Palm Beach County. It's in January. So when the first day of the fair is, we do a kids mile through the fair. So the schools agree to run or walk 25 miles either during the school day or at home. There is a reading component to that as well. And then we kind of meet at the opening of the fair and we run the last mile together. It's pretty remarkable. We have videos on that, which we shared as well. You can YouTube it. But our superintendent and our school board members are always at the finish line, along with many of our community partners, handing out the medals, a nice finisher medal. So it's just a big culminating event that happens in January, but we try to continue the momentum all year. We do a big Let's Move Palm Beach County, usually in the month of March here. The whole county gets involved with Let's Move initiatives as well. So we want to make sure our teachers have the tools, continue to receive the tools, and utilize the tools and resources throughout the entire year. Thank you.
Yeah, and hats off to you, Eric, for engaging all those different components: the parents, the superintendent, the school board member, the PTA, the physical education teachers, and I'm sure the principals and administrators at the local school level are highly involved. And that's something that is just remarkable and an outstanding achievement in order to make those people advocates basically for physical education, because they all see the good that your teachers are doing in the classrooms all the time, and the enjoyment that the children are having in the families from physical activity and being together. I also want to touch on this though, Eric, like you didn't jump in and have all this in place right away, because I'm sure there's a lot of people, on this webinar that, maybe they haven't done any of this before. So kind of throwing you a little extra bonus question here. What advice do you give those people who really don't do anything, as far as, do they just need to pick one thing and start with one and or maybe one each semester and try and get some engagement that way? What's your advice?
Low-hanging fruit, something that's winnable early, something that gains the success of your colleagues in your school, that they can see physical activity, physical education is important, something your principal will easily buy in, something if you have a PTA or an advisory board will jump in. And if you have any community support in the community, something to get behind. So I would obviously start with October 4th, International Walk Your Child School Day. It's really easy. You can set up some walking areas within your community, get parents to collect kids, walk together, do a walking school bus. Just give out some safety messages, free lessons online through Safe Kids Worldwide. You don't have to create it into resources, but just organize a nice little walk. Teach them about pedestrian safety. That's a real safe, easy, no money, no cost, way to get your whole school, the whole community to buy in about physical activity and physical education. That'd be the best one, I would think.
Super, and we did drop the Safe Routes link in the chat, so people can go there and take a look at it. But Eric, appreciate your expertise and sharing some of the different things that you do down in Palm Beach County, and hope you have a fantastic school year. Thanks for joining us today and being a part of this webinar.
Thank you for the invite. Best wishes to everybody. Reach out if you need any support.
Well, now, Nick, we are going to discuss a little bit about the local school level, and Eric kind of did a little bit of a segue into giving, a pretty easy idea for people to try and get themselves organized and get some family and school community engagement. So now we're going to take a look at the local school level. Both you and I have experience teaching at the local school level, as well as meeting with teachers all across the country and learning from them. Obviously, right now, one thing that's important to us is that family PE week component, which we'll touch on in just a second, and I'll let you give a chance to speak from Active School standpoint on that event. But as some people have already kind of started to do, hey, drop some ideas in the chat. If you're on this webinar, you have ideas that you've done where you've engaged families and communities with your school and gotten parents in the building through multiple ways. So drop some in the chat to share those with others. And Nick, we have Family PE Week coming up October 2nd to the 6th. So tell us a little bit more about that.
So Family PE Week is a great opportunity for you, whether you're a PE teacher or another teacher, like in Lisa Paulson's case in the school. It's just a great way to engage with families, and you can really go one of two routes. You can invite parents in to experience a physical education class or physical activity that's taking place within the school day. Some teachers are not comfortable with this. Some schools don't allow guests. So if that's not an option, you can also send, we have the Active Family Challenge chart on the landing page. So you can send that chart home so families can sort of track and compete to score points by completing the tasks or challenges. So it doesn't have to be one or the other. It can be both, or whatever you want to do to work at including families that week, or like you said, any other week that works in your schedule during the school year.
Right, and I dropped the link in the chat for everyone to Family PE Week, where we've collaborated with Active Schools to get some resources on there to help teachers. On that website, there's also an invitation letter that you can send home, as well as some other resources that you can utilize in order to help promote the week. And kind of the cool thing is that it's available in Word format. So if you want to take it and put your own personal school information in there, if you want to change some of the things in there, I even had a teacher email me today and ask if we had a permission form or an RSVP form, and I said no, we don't have one on there, but you can still download the letter to send home and add it at the bottom if you want to, for a student to return back, or add in a link to a Google form that they're going to fill out, so that when they decide that they are going to attend, you have an idea of how many people are going to be in there at the event. And I would be remiss if I did not mention Open National Trainer Will Potter, who was one of the folks who really kind of got Family PE Week going. It used to be bring your parent to PE Week, but we wanted to be super inclusive. So a few years ago, realizing that, hey, not everybody has necessarily a parent that takes care of them. It could be a grandparent, an aunt, an uncle, or another caretaker. So in order to be more inclusive, we changed it all to Family PE Week, so that way everyone could feel good about bringing someone from home into the school environment to participate. Now, Nick, I know one thing that immediately popped into my mind at the local school level, and Eric touched on it a little bit, was PTA and kind of back to school nights. And I know in some areas of the country, a lot of those have already happened. The Northeast and some other spots, people are just getting back to school. But I taught in several different situations, and there were some situations where, hey, we were out there and we were doing different things and being involved and being readily available to parents to answer questions. But I've seen other schools and visited other schools where the PE teachers either, number one, don't show up for back to school night, or number two, they hole up in their office with the door closed and don't want anybody to engage with them. So I know from my standpoint, it was always better to be out there to make a good contact with parents and caretakers at the get-go. What's been your experience with those PTA nights and back to school nights?
I was somebody who liked to engage, so I tried to make myself visible, especially at the school-sponsored events, but also at the related activities. So maybe it's the flag football or the soccer game or the concert. Even though you might not be talking directly to a family, maybe you're just one of the people in the stand. They see you, even if they don't acknowledge that. They see you and they appreciate that. So school events, non-school events where your students are involved, I think all of it supports that engagement.
Right. And it may not necessarily be a physical education event like you mentioned, but at some point when you're asking for volunteers to help or when you're trying to engage the community and get some assistance in your classroom, people are going to recall those times that they met with you, they talked with you, and they're going to be, more willing. It's like anything else when you ask a friend, like when we get together to do these webinars, it's more difficult to say no when you're working with somebody that and you're going to go ahead and do a special event. So when you get to know those community partners, like the parents and families who are involved in your local school community, it makes it so that they're more willing to assist and help. Were there any other events that you ran in your schools or that you've heard other teachers running, Nick, that engaged families in the entire community?
Yeah. So back to your point about, and Eric's point about starting small. I used to do family fun nights, and every year it was different, but I never did it alone because, once again, having one person doing all the work is overwhelming. So if there's others in your school that are willing to support, I was very close with all the special area teachers. So if there was a theme, maybe it's I don't know, recycling, because we want to like promote that. Then we'll come in PE and do an activity related game where we're sorting objects or pretending that we're recycling. In the library, they're going to read a book. In the art, they're going to maybe make something from recycled items or whatnot. So working together is much easier than trying to do everything alone.
For sure. And as Eric mentioned, getting, if your local school level, if you have a health and wellness council, to get some of those people involved. And you as the physical education teacher should be involved in that council, whether you chair the whole thing or whether you're just a part of it and attend the meetings with them. That's another way to get those volunteers and get them on board. I know in the state of Georgia, we had those councils throughout our schools, and it was a wonderful way to get people who, had a passion for health and wellness to get them on board with projects. And you kind of almost had your own self-made volunteer crew right there, with that council. So I know that another fun, eventful day that's great to incorporate families and the community in is Field Day, which is another thing that Open has supported throughout the years. And I know, at the local school level with Field Day, we consistently had parents who either wanted to come visit and just watch their students and watch the classes. We had parents who came and volunteered to run stations, who volunteered. Maybe we had a nurse, a parent who was a nurse, and they volunteered to come in to run a first aid station for us. So I'm sure that was another one, Nick, that you utilized in your teaching experience.
For sure. And then also just the spectators, the parents who aren't volunteering but are there watching. That's also powerful for the school community and engaging with families who might not come to another event, but they're there for that event. So lots of opportunity. And the other piece I want to,
oh, go ahead, Nick.
The other piece I want to mention is, like, we're talking a lot about like these big projects. The very smallest thing that I can point out is a simple call home. So oftentimes as teachers, we make those calls when there's an issue because somebody so and so behaved badly or they did something, and we're calling the parent and saying, you need to, to your child. But how about a positive call? Reaching out to a parent and just say, hey, so-and-so had an amazing day today. You'll be shocked at just the warm reception and appreciation, gratitude that parents, because, a lot of times they're expecting it to be negative. And when they hear something good, it goes a long way.
Yeah, and you I'm sure. Well, at some point you'll be in those shoes, Nick. And I know I have been with my kids, where you get that phone call from school and you kind of cringe when you answer it a little bit. But when it is one of those good phone calls, it's nice. And also, think about at the beginning of the school year, if you have a new student that's moved in over the summer, and you don't may not necessarily call every new student that joins your school, but even if you just pick a handful and make a nice phone call home, welcoming them to the school community, can go a long way. And then of course those students, when they move in during the school year, making that quick little phone call, a 2-minute phone call can go a long way, especially when an issue does come up, or when you need volunteers and you need backing from your family and school community. I know another event that we engaged our whole families and communities with was Kids Heart Challenge, and we'll have a guest from the American Heart Association coming up here in a little while, and she'll talk a little bit more about some of the free resources, not just Kids Heart Challenge, but also the American Heart Association has a ton of free resources that are available for PE teachers and the local communities. But before we get to her, Nick, we've got a new guest from Action for Healthy Kids. Take it away.
I just wanted to give one opportunity because I did see a hand raised. So Jessica, do you want to ask a question now, or you want to wait and save it for the end? So if you're on, Jessica, go ahead, drop that in the chat box, or we'll save a few minutes at the very end for questions. So that goes for everybody. If you have a question, drop it in the chat box, or we'll allow you to come off mute when we get to that question and answer. So without further ado, we're going to pull in Ashley Sandoval into this parent engagement webinar here to hear from her and what she has experienced. So Ashley works for Action for Healthy Kids, and has worn a lot of different hats throughout her career. So Ashley, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Yes, so my name is Ashley Sandoval. My pronouns are she, hers. I am the current family engagement manager at Action for Healthy Kids. And before Action for Healthy Kids, I was a physical education teacher. So I'm proud to be on this webinar and honor all that you guys do. And so I'm here to talk about ways that we can incorporate family engagement in our PE programs and our health departments, because it's a vital thing.
Great. So we talked about some barriers in terms of time and just manpower, but can you get into some other barriers that teachers might encounter if they choose to take on this challenge of engaging with families and communities?
Sure. So some of the barriers that pop up more frequently is time. So traditional time frames of hosting these events, either during school times or just traditional school hours, and that can cause a barrier to some parents that maybe work nights, or parents that work in the daytime or traditional school hours. Another barrier that has come up has been just language. So maybe being heavy dominant in English. We know that our some of our countries or cities, they don't speak English, and so that can be a barrier too. And another barrier is just insufficient communication methods. We know that parents are on social media or they are on their phones. And so sometimes the traditional handing out papers or flyers, or having bulletin boards in the schools, some parents are not going to see that. And so having insufficient communication methods that don't reach from across all platforms can be a barrier to some parents.
Thanks, Ashley. Yeah, I mean, and those are some things that schools wrestle with as well, not just physical education teachers trying to engage their communities. And I came up, as you were listing those three things off, the hours that you run the events, the language, and the communication, I was trying to think to myself, okay, what are some solutions to these? But I'm sure you have some tips to address some of these barriers that you'd be willing to share with our group today.
Yes, I came with some tips. So the first tip I want to leave with you guys is to utilize technology, right? So just like how we're doing right now, this is a Zoom, right? So that's how we're utilizing technology. It's also being recorded. So for families that can't attend events that you plan out, if it's at least recorded, it can be sent out. Or there's an option to be live. You can Facebook Live it, Instagram Live it, somewhere where parents can just feel like they're, joining the event as well, and maybe have a host, in the chat, engaging with them, doing some things at home that they can do. They probably can't do all the things, in the event, but they can do some things that like a person on the side can help them in the chat with. And the other thing is to develop an online portal, just like how Active Schools and Open has a portal where you can go in and grab some resources, make that available to the parents. And I think that would be another helpful tip. Another one is to embrace cultural diversity. And I know that culture and diversity is like hot ticket words, but we want to make sure that our events, we have staff and members that represent your community, because the easiest way for someone to feel connected is representation. And so if we have staff members, community members, just people that, are representative of the community, families are more likely to be engaged and feel safe. And we know that psychological safety is important, and especially in school settings. We know that just in this country, school settings can be kind of iffy or just a sensitive spot. So we want to make sure that if we do have these events, we want to make sure that we embrace cultural diversity, because that strengthens all of us at the end of the day. And then the last tip I want to leave you guys with is to prioritize your community partners. Our communities have so many resources. We just have to get out there and speak to people. I think that we are stronger together, and that's kind of just the heart of family engagement, reaching out to people, making better connections. And I think that when I was a PE teacher, I actually partnered with a local gym for my school, because we had we were in a small space. And so that gym owner actually let us come once a week and, use his gym. And so I think that, utilizing our community partners to fill in those gaps. So we know that teachers already have a heavy schedule, and I know that our community wants to support our schools. We just have to find those people. And so filling in the gap when it comes to transportation, filling in the gap when it comes to language barriers, filling in the gap when it comes to the time constraints, all of those barriers, I believe those solutions are found in our community and in people. And we just have to go out there and find them. And so that is one strategy I would utilize as well.
When really it comes down to asking for help, right, Ashley? I mean, with with a lot of these different things, I mean, just with addressing some of the things that you talked about, and reaching out to community partners, asking for assistance, and it may be a parent who owns a business that's not even related to health and physical education that may be willing to help, but go ahead and ask them anyway. Ask the ESOL teacher, hey, we have a high representative of this language in our school. Can I get some help with translating some documents? So that I can make them more readily available, so that our school community can read them and understand them in their own native language. And I guess the other thing too is, with, like you said, with a webinar or a Facebook Live or one of those events, asking one of your other teachers, Eric or Nick talked about the specials areas teachers at his school being a close knit community. Hey, I'll take over everything if you can just run the chat and let people in the room. That would be helpful. And the other thing is, you got to start small. Like that's been a theme all along. You don't have to go for a whole hour. You could just go on for 15 minutes and you're still engaging the community, and you still have the ability to go in there and reach people. So thanks so much. Appreciate the tips to addressing those barriers. Nick, one last question for Ashley, right?
Yeah. So we heard earlier in this webinar from Lisa about why she believes family engagement is important. I'd like to hear from you about why you believe it's important.
Yeah, so family engagement is a big word, but I think that when it comes down to it, is to help our community. And when it comes to community, we first think of schools, and we think of the youth. And so there are a lot of pandemics and epidemics that are going around. And the top two that I can think of that really impact our youth, which our PE teachers work with, is the mental health crisis, and we have obesity health crisis. And I think that as PE teachers or as health advocates, we really have an opportunity to make a positive impact on those two crises that is happening right now. And I believe that bringing in family engagement or just prioritizing those strategies, it helps with classroom behavior, it helps with the school climate, it helps with just attendance, and it helps with camaraderie when we know that people have our back and they're willing to go the extra mile. And I think that that's what family engagement is. And we know that the arts, physical activity, physical education is so necessary in schools. And so I believe that's why family engagement is important.
Thank you. And I agree. And like we sort of said before, it helps to establish those connections so that when you do need help, like let's say if he's on the chopping block, your parents are right there to get your back and support you. So that it's not you can be proactive rather than reactive.
Reactive, yep.
Well, thanks for being here, Ashley. We appreciate your tips and suggestions and advice and why. And we're going to turn it over to Brian to introduce our next guest.
Thanks so much, Ashley. Appreciate you joining us today. So our final guest today is Jenny Nixon, and Jenny is the Regional Vice President of School Engagement for the American Heart Association in the Midwest region. So Jenny, I know our paths have crossed a couple of times before, but if you could share with everyone kind of what you do on a day-to-day basis to support schools and students and healthy hearts.
Sure, absolutely. Well, honored to be here. Thank you so much for having us here. The Heart Association is celebrating our 100th year in 24. So we're very proud of that, and very busy in schools. Kids Heart Challenge. And so I actually drove 800 miles yesterday visiting schools. And so it was super exciting to get in there and get in front of PE teachers, principals, maybe knock on a couple doors. So that was really, really special. So, for the Heart Association, our goal is really to provide health and hope to everyone everywhere. And so through that, in the part of the area of the Heart Association that I work with is obviously school engagement and through Kids Heart Challenge. And so just want to share some things for this year that we're really excited about and also thankful. First off, we're thankful is last year, most of us watched Damar Hamlin go down on the field and was saved by CPR. And so through all of that, Damar became a huge advocate of the American Heart Association and is really promoting CPR. And so we are excited about that. The NFL actually has teamed up with us as well this year. They've had the American Heart Association come and do hands-only CPR with a lot of their employees. And so what we've done is taken that a step further. And we've been doing this the last couple of years through, if those of you who participate in Kids Heart Challenge know about Finn's mission or know about Finn. Finn is a national, one of our national survivors. We're following as he goes. He is a third grader, has had 18 procedures in his young life. And one of the things that his mom was really concerned about was, if Finn goes down at school, do people know what to do? Just somebody in general, if he goes down. And for me as a parent, I was more so worried about my son talking, making friends, those were the things I was worried about, but she was worried about Finn's health. And so we designed Finn's challenge, which one of those components is hands-only CPR. And so we've been doing it for a couple years. It's now enhanced. Damar Hamlin is involved in that and is also is a part of our hands-only CPR, where the kids will follow along and with their families will watch a very short video on hands-only CPR. We know the bystanders, only about 40% of bystanders are doing anything, and we need more people. We need families to know how to do hands-only CPR. And through Kids Heart Challenge, they're able to learn about that. We actually had a gentleman whose life was saved because a mother and son watched hands-only CPR because of Kids Heart Challenge. And so, Damar is promoting that with us, and so is the NFL. And so what the NFL is doing is any family that completes our Finn's mission, that student is going to go into a drawing for 2 tickets to the 25 Super Bowl. So in 25, so we're super excited about that. Any family that completes it, and then also for the schools, for every 18 kiddos that complete Finn's mission, that school will go into a drawing for a $10,000 mini makeover for the gymnasium. Again, thankful for the NFL to provide that. So it's just a way of just, taking the mission outside of the school and taking it into the community so we have a safer community.
And definitely a valuable skill for everybody to know.
Absolutely.
And the more people we get trained, and DeMar Hamlin obviously brought that to the forefront last year with his situation. So appreciate, as someone who has someone in their family that has heart disease, and it's important that bystanders know and understand what they need to do at minimum. And some people do get a little freaked out. They don't want to do the rescue breaths and all that part, but even the chest compressions themselves can be that force that saves someone's life at some point, and not put yourself at any perceived risk that you may have for your own personal health. So Nick, follow-up question for Jenny.
Sure. So 800 miles, wow, that's crazy. So you're not alone. I know representatives from the American Heart Association are visiting schools all the time.
Right.
How do they, this is sort of like a two-part question, how do they connect with or become ambassadors for the profession of physical education? And tell us also, touch on how Open and the American Heart Association have collaborated to support that.
Yeah, sure. No, great question to ask. When we go to every school that we can and talk about Kids Heart Challenge, and it's a great opportunity. No secret to me or to the Heart Association, but the gymnasium is the most important classroom in that building because you're dealing with health and wellness. And so, we want our partnership to be about, what are the resources we can enhance what you're already doing? How can we support you? So we're going into those schools, working with PE teachers, working with nurses, student council, with Kids Heart Challenge and American Heart Challenge, which is our middle and high school. And so, we love working with Open. I think Brian is my best friend and he doesn't know it. But the wealth of information that Open has given Kids Heart Challenge, those resources have been so invaluable to the Heart Association. So we've had such a great partnership with Open on resources on STEM, vaping and smoking, professional development, hands-only CPR, just various lesson plans, so things that go even beyond Kids Heart Challenge. And so we're excited about that. We're excited to be able to provide those resources where a school can come to us and say, hey, we're having, we're doing something with Wellness Night. What are some resources that you might have? Or, what are some things on vaping? We want to be able to provide that. And because of Open and having that relationship, we've been able to elevate the resources that we provide schools by participating in our programs.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jenny. And we definitely value our partnership that we have with you, and providing open modules as well that work well in with Kids Heart Challenge. And, we do some special events for you on behalf of you, and you all at the American Heart Association actually host a monthly webinar series also, where several of our Open national trainers have gone on there and done sessions. There's one coming up October 4th dealing with nutrition. So we'll have Open national trainer Andrea Hart will be on there to do some work there with the American Heart Association. So appreciate all the collaboration that we've done and will continue to do. So speaking of collaboration, I know with with the special events that American Heart, host with Kids Heart Challenge, American Heart Challenge, all that good stuff. What kind of collaboration have you seen with those special events and school communities? I know like American Heart Challenge, I've seen where, they run it around football games or have pep rallies and those kind of things. So if you could share some of those ways that you've seen the communities engaged.
Yeah, definitely. And the beauty of it, it's whatever works for the school works for us. So we will share ideas, but what's going to make sense for that school, that community, that's the way we're going to run with it. And so we love to bring the families involved, just like with hands-only CPR. When we talk about that, we don't want it to stay in the school. We want them to go and watch that with their families. And so we love it when families want to be a part of it. Again, it's up to the school to say, hey, we're going to do an after school and invite the parents, or hey, we're going to do something during PE, and then they're inviting the parents to be a part of that. You know, we've heard several speakers talk about the importance of the community being involved. And that's what's important, you know, important to us. And what's also important is everybody gets to hear the message. And so we want everybody to hear that. And, you know, for us, it's like, let the parents decide whether they raise donations or not. But the community wraps around this when, you know, when they're told about it, when they know what's going on.
Yeah, no, and you know, your resources, just like all the resources that we've shared today, I mean, that's just one way that we can bring folks in to get them engaged in our schools. You know, whether it's through outreach, like doing hands-only CPR, whether it's bringing them in with Kids Heart Challenge. I know, you know, when I was a teacher, it was a huge event for parents to be involved. We utilized parents as volunteers, and parents just wanted to come see their kids be active and have a good time. And so, you know, having them in there and seeing their students in that setting, just like a field day setting where they see their student participating and having a good time, it promotes, you know, those good feelings about physical education and about your program. So, Jenny, appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. Hopefully you don't have any miles to do after this session, and you can relax for the rest of the day today. You need your car break, okay?
Thanks.
Thanks for coming today. Have a great day.
You bet.
Well, Nick, it's been an action-packed 53 minutes so far. So we've learned a lot from a lot of different guests. From Lisa Paulson, as far as the why it's important for us to engage you know, families and get them involved in physical education, to Eric Stern sharing, you know, some of the things in Palm Beach County that they do and initiatives he takes at the district level. You and I discussing some things at the local school level. Then we had Ashley Sandoval come in and talk about some of the obstacles, which there are going to be obstacles. And I guess you know, one thing, it's just like teaching in class. There's going to be failures. You may try an event or try to do something for family engagement, and it may not work, but you can't get discouraged and maybe address some of those obstacles that Ashley discussed. And then, of course, Kids Heart Challenge and American Heart Association having free resources that they can share with the community to get the community involved and make it a safer place for everyone to live. So, you know, and we also discussed a little bit about Family PE Week and that coming up. So, any big takeaway from you as far as what we learned today, or any special messages that our guests had that resonated?
Yeah, don't get overwhelmed. Start small. So I think a few of our guests sort of touched on that. We've shared a lot of different, like you just mentioned, a lot of different pieces here. Pick one if you're new to this, and go from there and build from there. And then the other thing is, I would like to turn it over to anyone who's joining us for questions. I don't see any in the chat box. So if you want to come off mute, if there's something we did not touch on that you would like us to.
And appreciate some of those folks who did share in the chat box. They shared some different events that they ran at their school in order to get some family engagement there. So appreciate them going out on a limb and sharing some different things. I saw things about kickball games. I saw running clubs, you know, all those different things that are in there where, you know, they bring families in. I know at one of the schools I worked at, we had a running club where I didn't have to do it. My co-teacher didn't have to do it. We had a parent on the health and wellness committee who was passionate about it and said, hey, I want to do this 2 days a week in the spring. Can I do it? We passed it all through the system and the administration, and they took the ball and ran with it. And it was great because we had kids, you know, that did it. And then we ended up having a culminating event with a 5K, not as big as Eric Stern's in Palm Beach County, but still, you know, we got families involved and got them active on a Saturday morning, and it was a ton of fun. So appreciate that. I don't see anything popping up in the chat. I think one of my big takeaways, Nick, was, you know, like you said, you got to start small and you got to start somewhere. And the other part is the advocacy component. The parents at your school are going to be the best advocates that you have for your program and for physical education. And I can't remember which guest touched on it. It may have been Ashley Sandoval. You know, when they start talking about cutting PE teachers and they start talk about cutting minutes in physical education or cutting out recess, these people are going to be your biggest advocates to make sure that they maintain physical education programs or build them with additional funding, additional teachers, additional facilities. So make sure that you engage these parents, because they can be your best ally when you need resources and you need things for your physical education programs.
Right on.
All right.
So once
We dropped some links in the chat too, from the different organizations, so you can go back and scroll through that. Nick, you want to close us out?
Yeah, just once again, Family PE Week is October 2nd through the 6th. So get on, check out the resources that are available, pick some, and then go from there. So thank you all for joining us. We appreciate your time and energy and support around this topic, and enjoy the rest of your day and the rest of your school year.
Thanks, Nick. Everyone have a great day. Thanks for joining us, guests.